So Lord, I just want to thank you so much for this beautiful day and just for bringing all your people here from all around the world to learn, to grow, to build connections. Father, we pray that in this time that you speak and that you open hearts and you deposit the messages that you have, and that everything I speak would be from you, Lord. Nothing added, nothing less. And Lord, as you say, Father, to seek you first, your kingdom and your righteousness. So Father, this morning we seek you first, your kingdom and your righteousness, for that sake. And then we understand that all these things will be added onto us. In Jesus' name, amen. So I feel so privileged actually to be able to speak to Christians, to believers, and thought leaders and academics. Just in terms of a brief background, I speak mainly to companies and to business leaders, and so I was just sharing that it's very nice and it's refreshing to be able to share the true story behind why Nobi and behind why I do what I do, which I often don't get to share in business contexts because I have to speak business speak. So now I can just speak actually more openly and honestly with you all about the heart and vision behind why I do these things. And so just in terms of background, can I just skip? Just very briefly, I'm from New York, and I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I'm Korean American, and just a series, I won't go into the whole background of why I ended up here, but about 10 years ago, I left McKinsey. No, that's not true. I didn't leave McKinsey. God called me out of McKinsey, out of Los Angeles, and my very comfortable secular life, and then called me to follow him. And so literally to pick up the cross and follow him, so I quit, and I ended up starting my first company, Awaken Group, to bring kingdom principles into companies and governments, and that brought me to Singapore. And then 3 years ago, finally my 20-year dream of starting a tech company was realized in the starting of Nobi. But God is kind, and God remembers the dreams that he puts in our hearts, and somehow, whether it takes 20 years, he still makes those things come true because he remembers. So I think in terms of the next slide, I'm just going to kind of go quickly through some of the beginning. As we're talking about this whole idea of digital Christianity, and so I love this topic, actually, and I thought it would be important to start with really the heart of ministry. Because it's digital Christianity, if it's just Christianity without understanding the human or the heart behind it, then we can end up doing a lot of things but miss the point. And so digital is not about doing things on technology for the sake of technology because it's sexy and cool, which a lot of people want to do, but really starting with the heart. And the heart of ministry really is his people. God loves his people, and it's really about how do we build his church and use technology as a way to enable that. Next slide. And so I kind of thought as we start and we're thinking about some of the principles around digital Christianity, I thought we'd start with kind of, I don't have glasses, okay. Romans 12:6. We have different gifts according to the grace given to each of us. And so given the different talents and technology and talents and gifts that we all have, even in the technology space, I think there's an opportunity to collaborate. And I loved last night being here when Teresa was talking about the millennials. The millennials have their own set of gifts and talents. And those who are a little bit more mature have another set of gifts and talents. So I think the idea is intergenerational, interdenominational, intercultural, and as we're able to bring all those things together, I think we can do quite amazing things. And part of the requirements for innovation is to have different points of view and being able to understand, and sometimes even in the body of Christ, we have these different strengths and talents. And so even as we start talking about digital Christianity, in the heart of this ministry, it's to recognize that the differences in capabilities, mindsets, and readiness of the entire community. So I think the challenge, though, and I think yesterday we were talking about some of the trends in the video about how millennials are looking for authenticity, and they're looking for connections and relationships and to be mentored, right? And so I did the slide before yesterday, so I'm glad it's aligned, yeah? But I think the challenge is how can we build authentic human connections using technology and using digital? Most people think when you think technology, it's not human. It's digital, it's not authentic, or it's not relational. So I'm here today to challenge those assumptions. And I'm here to challenge how we think about technology and the use of technology, given that all of you are in such huge positions of influence. And you have, in some ways, one of the most important roles of society, because not only are you teaching the next generation and thousands, you're developing people. And those people that you're developing are going to influence many, many other people. So sitting in this room today, I'm sure represent hundreds of millions, if not billions of lives. And so if we're thinking about how we're designing for that kind of influence, and technology is something we have to use, it's a tool, how do we use it in a way that doesn't take away from our design intention? And I think that's really, really important. The next, challenge is similar. How do we embed Christ into all things digital as well? And the vision of my company, actually, which I'll share, I think maybe it's in the next slide, is to humanize the world. And people ask me, what does it mean to humanize the world? So I'll give you the cheat sheet. Who was the most human that ever lived in the world? Jesus. Yeah, the answer's behind me. So Jesus was the most, that was planned. No, I'm just kidding. So Jesus was the most human that ever walked this earth. So when we talk about humanizing the world, it's how do we make things Christ-like and make that part of our being, part of our intention, part of the way we do things. So I think that's really the exciting part, that they're not two separate things. That when we're talking about doing things in human ways, if we think about who was the most human, that's actually Christ. So then they're two and the same. So as we move on, one of the things that I searched on this topic, which I thought was interesting, was last June, I actually did a talk to Christians, and I searched, who is God? And I wanted to see how many searches people were searching for that. I have some great news for you. That number has shot up by 25%. Last year, 2 billion searches for who is God. And last night, a few nights ago, it's 2.5 billion. People are looking for God. People are searching. We talk about kind of church and the relevance of the church. Forget the church. People are looking for God. They're searching. Who is God? 2.5 billion times. All around the world. So there is a huge opportunity and a hunger. All of these spirituality and mindfulness movements, people are hungry for truth. So this room is full of people who hold truth. How do we get that truth into the hands of those billions of people who are looking for it? How do we take it outside our classrooms? How do we take it outside our small groups? How do we expand our minds to be God-sized? I still remember one of my mentors, Dave Gibbons, 10 years ago. I was sharing the vision for my first company, and he said to me, "Oh, that's interesting. That sounds very so young-sized." So what does that mean? And then he kept challenging me until I finally shared kind of this vision that scared me. He said, "Okay, that sounds about right. Then you need God for that." And so when we think about our visions, do those visions scare you? They should terrify you. And when they terrify you, then you're getting closer to being God-sized. Otherwise, we do it ourselves, right? So now I have this crazy vision. I'm like, yeah, we're going to impact billions of lives, right? But then to be bold about that, because that's what God calls us to do, and because data shows that there's a need. Yeah, let's move on. And so I think the thing is that the knowledge of Christ, though, is not enough. And even Jack Ma in Alibaba says, as he was an educator, that just knowing things is not enough. So we need to move beyond knowing. And I think many of you are great at knowing things. You know way, way, way more than I do. So I hope that I have the chance and the privilege to learn from you, because you know so much more than I do. But that's not enough. And so if you think about just knowing, how do we move that into application and doing? Because that's where life transformation happens. It's in the doing of things. So then how do we then use technology to move beyond that, not just the knowing, but the doing, the mindset shifts, the values and the character that's associated and that's surrounded with that knowing. The truth is, if you know a lot of stuff, but lack the character, you're dangerous. I'd rather you not know much. So the character development has to be a part of that, integral part of that process, right? And the truth and the power is you can do that with technology. And it starts with your design intention. So in terms of the design intention, it starts with a purpose. And so we were just chatting a little bit about that, right, this morning about the design intentions of technology. I just came back from Silicon Valley yesterday. I spent about half my time in Silicon Valley and about half my time here. And it actually makes me sick to my stomach when I hear technologists basically saying, I don't take responsibility, it's just a platform. You can do whatever you want with it. Okay, so you can actually host websites that actually promote people to kill each other and you have no responsibility. Really? Right? Every technologist, every designer of anything, the person who designed this microphone had a design intention for this technology. To pretend that you didn't have a design intention, you'd be lying. Now, if I choose to use this microphone and hit you over the head with it, I can, of course. That will be a misuse of this technology. But it was designed with an intention. Technology is absolutely no different. So one of the things that I talk a lot about in the Valley is purpose. Why do you run the tech companies that you're running? Is it just to make more tech stuff, to add more features, or what is the actual design intention? And that's really, really important. And so one of the things I'm trying to do is start a tech renaissance to get back to the values and the principles behind technology, because technology is just a mimic, if you will, of the human experience. So if you have a bunch of humans who are basically designing things in a crappy way, then technology is just going to mimic that. And now with AI, robotics is just going to be faster. So instead of taking 10, 20, 50 years, it's going to be done in a couple of years. So we're living in a terrifying place, world where now technology just exacerbates and accelerates bad decisions. So now we have to be even more intentional about how we use technology. And so if you're, it's a little bit frightening when I come back from the Valley and I hear these conversations and I say, really, how could that be? And we have to take responsibility. So I think there's an opportunity to use technology because humans are the creators of that. And then how do we be intentional with that design? So in terms of the tech trends, it's really important though, I think as the kingdom, we need to be at the cutting edge of technology. If everyone is sitting in this room and you don't know about IoT, big data, please go learn it. Because you have to know what technologies are out there so that you can use it for the design intentions that God has called us to. Technology is not new. When the print press was created, that was technology that enabled the billions of Bibles to be printed. That was technology. So it's actually being aware of the latest technologies. And now it's AI. Now it's big data. It's automation. It's robots. It's machine learning. So how do we learn these things, especially in the education space? There's a ton of innovation happening in education right now. The entire industry is being disrupted. I just heard a podcast yesterday by the CEO of Pearson, the multi-billion-dollar publishing company. He said, oh, no, we're not a publishing company anymore. Oh, really? What are you? We're a learning company. And we're a learning company who's now totally getting rid of physical textbooks, and we're making all the content digitized, interactive, and personal. Because that is basically going to add more value. It's not about the physical textbook anymore. And we're going to make it easily modifiable and editable. It's also more eco-friendly, right? So, but he's thinking differently about the use of technology to further the mission. So the next slide. So I think as we align our plans then with God's purpose, how do we then bring those things together so that we basically take our intention and then into the things that we're trying to deliver and then do that in a very intentional way, using the technologies, the latest, but not using technology because it's cool. There are too many people I talk to who are like, oh, do you do AR? Do you do VR? Okay, well, what do you want to use it for? Oh, I just want to use that. Why, right? So I think if you have a very clear design intention, then you use that design intention as a starting point to then be more open to what are all the technologies available to me that will help me to achieve this design intention or this objective or this goal. That is actually really powerful. And there's a ton out there. Next slide. So, sorry for the cutoff. I think I tried to do 16 by 9, but maybe I didn't do a good job. Okay, so the vision, again, I was saying, is to humanize the world. And our mission is a 3C mission. So this is basically our intention, is actually to raise human consciousness, to build authentic human connection, and to inspire behavior change. And many people ask me, you're a tech company. This is very strange for a tech company. And I'm like, why is your tech company not thinking design that way? Shouldn't your technology company be designed in a way that actually fosters the human experience? Right? Why is this the exception? Shouldn't this be the norm? Next slide. But I think because you start with that, then the technology is then built on top of those design intentions, then you build features in order to actually enable that. So the challenge we have right now is how do you then move beyond knowing things into doing things where then you can start to develop skills and transform lives. So I'm just going to share this morning some examples of how we're using our technology to do that as a thought starter for you of what's possible when you start with a very clear design intention. Next slide, please. So imagine that you can actually, because remember our mission was to inspire behavior change, that you can inspire daily actions, small 10-minute actions and habits every single day where you woke up and you would be able to get a new inspiration of things to do. I think U version, right, is kind of a part of that and a start in that. Next slide. So imagine if every morning you woke up and you got a little, video, 1-minute video that we had yesterday about the millennials and how to reach the millennials. But then not only that, then I had to stop and think about it. What are the challenges I'm having with millennials and reaching millennials in my context? Then I had to apply that and say, what decisions will I make that will help me to increase my understanding of the needs of millennials? And then share that with my community so that I can be more accountable for what I've just decided to do. And I can also learn from you and your ideas. And then have all of that trackable in a database to be able to customize and improve that. Imagine if that was a daily experience of every topic you ever teach in your seminars. Imagine how life transformative that would be. Wouldn't that be cool? You wake up every day, you're in your phone so much, but you woke up with a life-giving piece of content. And then those 10-minute actions a day. Sometimes spending 4 hours sitting down reading a book, it's hard to find that time. But if you break it up into 10-minute bites, I don't have any excuses. I can find 10 minutes in the toilet, in the taxi, waiting for something, right? In order to be able to do that. This is actually what we're talking about. We're talking about daily behaviors and bite size and changing that narrative. And so, very briefly, because you're educators, I also wanted to share about the evolution of the whole learning space, especially in digital learning. How many of you have ever heard of Udemy or Udacity, Coursera, edX? How many of you have taken a class? Yep. Okay, good. A good number of you. Awesome. So that would be part of what I call the digital 1.0 space. So about 10 years ago, a lot of innovation, the objective at the time was, how do we scale knowledge? And so I think Calvin and I were talking about this experience you're having here in these small groups is more experiential learning, right? The old school learning was basically back there. Lecture style, you talk at people for 40 minutes or for an hour and they take notes, kind of what we're doing now, which I really, anyways. But anyway, so old school 1.0, pedagogy or andragogy. So andragogy is the science of adult learning, was kind of one to many. And it was primarily one way. So what technology did in the 1.0 is they just took that same philosophy of teaching and they just digitized that, right? And that's basically what 1.0 was. So 1.0 was primarily one way, individual, right, top-down kind of communication. Now in 2.0, just like you all are sitting here in a very different social small group discussion in a much more interactive, participatory way, imagine if you were to digitize that. then the objective would be different. It's not just about scaling knowledge, it's also about developing skills, capabilities, because by discussing within your groups, you are much more accountable for that. You also retain it better. Because if I just talk at you, most of you will forget 90% of what I say in 9 hours. Yeah? So I'm probably at some point going to ask you to share with your, with your peers, because I want you to retain some of it. But I think the whole idea of being able to be participatory, so it needs a new approach to learning. So we designed this framework called MPPG, which I think can be used for any technology that you design. So it's a gift to take and to take those principles. And MPPG stands for Mobile First. Mobile First is actually not because I like the mobile phone, but Mobile First is actually about empowerment. There are 5 billion people around the world who have access to mobile phones, more than the number of people who have access to clean water. So Mobile First gives people the experience. In some countries around the world, as you know better than I, are leapfrogging the PC into the mobile. So Mobile First is about kind of giving that empowerment. Participatory is that if you don't participate with me and participate in the learning experience, you're going to get bored and you're going to forget, and it won't be relevant to you. Personalized learning is we all learn and take away different things. We have different contexts, different experiences. So how do we then do that? And then group-based is a social part of that learning experience, because that actually then is collaborative. I can learn from you, you can learn from me. So MPPG is something that we created just to actually help with principles and design principles as you think about the technologies. Then the technology sits on top of that. And then you can then design on top. Any questions before we move on? No? All right, because I'm going to give you a few examples of how we do that in tech. So a Mobile First is about access. It's basically about choice. Next slide. Did you know that, what do you think of this number? How many times a day do you think you touch this device? Huh? How many? Yeah. So this data is a few years old. So 2,600 touches. I suspect that this data is about 5 years old, so I suspect it's probably 4,000 to 5,000 on average now. If you think about it, and 90% of those touches, which is cut off, is actually in apps. So people think that apps are not working. That's actually not true. The data doesn't support that. Now, when you design for the mobile first experience, then what implications does that have versus designing for the PC? Any thoughts? How might you design differently? What do you assume about your learner when you're designing mobile first versus mobile responsive? Huh? Short? And is your learner sitting down or standing in the mobile environment? Standing. Not only they're standing, they're probably walking, right? And what do people do, which is really dangerous, which I do a lot as well, when you're walking? You're touching your phone. The tactile experience of mobile first is something that is often overlooked. So if I take a long video and I break that video up into small bites and I put it into the mobile, would that be the best use of mobile first design? You think so? If I'm just sitting there watching the video? You would want to design ways for me to keep touching my phone as often as possible. The more I touch this device, the more psychological connection I have with this device. There has been no such device than this one that basically, how many of you take this to the toilet? How many? Oh, we have a very shy group here. Wow. Aren't you supposed to all be honest, theologians? How many people take this to the toilet? Thank you very much. Very good. Research shows 80%. Okay? So the rest of you who didn't raise your hand, okay, maybe this is a skewed sample size. 80% of us take this thing to the toilet. Why do we do that? Are we crazy, right? It's because there is this psychological accessibility with this device that is unlike anything we've ever seen before. Yes, sometimes yes, when you don't use it. But the psychological connection when you actually touch this device, so if you were to design for mobile first, you would obviously have to design very differently. So one of the things that we're launching actually in September, because our clients have been asking, is mobile instructional design accreditation. Because mobile instructional design is a different mindset. You have to design your content differently for mobile than versus technology, typical E, versus for classroom, versus for blended, right? There's different learning modalities, and mobile instructional design is another modality. And recognizing that the mindset required for that is quite different. So the whole participation is actually about learn by doing, and that's the whole idea is to then invite you. I just did a little tiny participation with you, and you have all been doing it all day as you ask each other, and you're educators, so I think you'll know this better than I. But then to be able to use technology to invite people to participate by asking them open-ended questions, or by asking them to go do things. And so the whole idea of when I designed this thing was I didn't want people to be on their phones all the time. That would break my heart, actually. This should not be a lonely experience. It should be an experience where I take the principle that I've learned, go in real life with real humans, and go practice and apply that and participate with other humans, and then maybe report back or use this as a digital record of what I've learned and applied. That's powerful. That's the use of technology to support my development as a human, not the other way around. We're not slaves to the technology. We should use the technology to support us. Personalized, okay, we can skip that, is actually then about the relevance to the context, and that's about challenging, and this is again up to you as the educator. So after you finish a course on, I don't know, Job, or something that you're doing, then as a designer it requires some creativity to think about how do you get the person to apply what those principles they learned in the class. And that learned in the class could be this class could be here, or the class could be a physical space. And how do you then challenge the person to then think about how they personalize it, and then think about how they would apply it? And so powerful educators do that all the time. We use coaching methodology to do that as well, coaching techniques, because coaching is all about bringing out what's already inside of people, not putting it in. So that's where you bring it personalized and the context, so then you make the content their own. The last piece then is about group-based and collaborative learning. Personalized is all about recognizing also uniqueness. So, one thing that I should point out here is we're very privileged to partner with Wordly, which actually does the different languages. They have, I think, access to over 1,000 languages, and I think Google has only 100. But they've decided to partner with us in order to basically allow Nobi to be in any language in the world. So that if we wanted to reach 5 billion people, we'd be able to do that, which we're very, very excited about. Because the true why of why I started this company was not just to build a cool tech company, because I mean, there's enough cool things out there that are not so necessarily good for the world, was actually to use the device to bring the gospel to the ends of the earth. And to bring it in a personalized way to the ends of the earth. And that requires localization and customization in local language. And so because of that, we made a very, very big investment and a choice to actually allow the platform to be in any language, even Arabic, from right to left. And people thought we were a little bit cuckoo, because they're like, you're a startup company, why are you just focus on one language? Don't build many. But we said, no, it's okay, let's invest in that. And so we've made a lot of decisions because of this longer term vision that I can share openly with you, about the kingdom mission. So that's really what we're about to do. The next piece is about this group-based principle, which is all about community. And let's skip over this because I think we talked about that. I think the idea of the very simple principle, if you forget MPPG, is maybe something you might remember, which is just very simply, if every class, if every learning lesson had learn, think, apply, share, then it would just be, it's andragogically sound. Right? And andragogy is the science of adult learning. Pedagogy is for children learning. Andragogy is adult learning. Humanagogy is the science of how humans learn. Yep. So so we take humanagogical and andragogical principles in order to apply that. So learn, think, apply, share. And if you do that in any order all the time, which is what you're doing in this conference, then you will take ownership and retain that content. Next slide. And so this is just an example of how we're using and applying learn, think, apply, share in a mobile device. So I had the privilege really because I'm a coach as well as a facilitator. So I would facilitate these like design thinking innovation workshops. And I said, what would I do at this point? Okay, I would do a video. After I do the video, what would I do after the video? I would say, okay, small groups, in your groups, please discuss your key takeaways. Wouldn't you do that, right? That was the thinking part. Okay, now that you've done that, what innovation ideas do you have that you want to apply at work? That would be the apply. Please share examples. Okay, but we have 300 people here. The truth is, if I did a blended workshop right now, we could not hear from more than probably 5 or 6 because we'd run out of time. The beautiful thing in technology is we could have all 300 share immediately and all of us would be able to see it. So cool, right? So the technology can actually make the experience even better. We've done it across 3 different countries, Singapore, Switzerland, San Francisco, all at the same time, all on their mobile phones, on video conference, doing blended learning experiences and being more collaborative than even if just you're face-to-face because of limited space, time. Whereas in digital, then you're able to continue to share. And that's really the beauty of using technology to enhance your objective and not the other way around. And so we've been able to do that and then share in social media, likes and comments, because people like to be heard and acknowledged, right? And so it's actually building off of the human behavior and then using technology again to enhance that. By the way, I can encourage all of you, you can download it for free if you want to try to see what that experience is like. And then I'm also happy to give you, I think Crew Asia has created 4 or 5 different courses, which I'll share in a minute, which I'm happy to share actually with everyone here as well. Yeah. The other piece in terms of technology, in terms of empowerment, is about making it easy for people to do things. I think up until now, when you talk about technology or digital, people go, oh my gosh, technology, okay, I have to get a technology expert, I gotta hire a young millennial who's gonna create the content, and in the whole organization, only 1 or 2 people can create the content, they have systems admin rights, no one else can do it. Good news, that's the days of yesterday. Okay, can we stop that? Can we stop that?
No.
Can we make it easier? Can we empower anyone to create content? Because knowledge should not be limited to a few. Can we empower, make the technology easy to use so that you don't have to go through 6 months of training to learn how to use it? By the time you finish using it, it's already outdated. Right? So let's make things very, very easy to co-create and then create agility. Let's not wait 6 to 12 months for the textbook to come out. I know that there's definitely amazing research, right? I mean, and I'm talking to academics, so you guys are looking at me like I'm crazy. Okay, I get it. So some things require that much research and work. Other things can be done much faster. So it's about deciding which pieces of content require which level of excellence, of perfection, right, of granularity, and what things can be actually done at scale and speed. So I think that the idea of being able to empower people to create, having your students create, because learn by teaching is the most effective way of learning, right? And to apply the principles you taught them and get them to do that is, I think, a really important part of how we design our platform. So this is an example I was just sharing with Crew Asia. So what they did is on the left side, they created a bunch of courses to help with evangelism. So a bunch of people who are not instructional designers, they're not technologists that I'm aware of, they're just average people who are volunteers who work for Crew Singapore, created the content, and they created beautiful designs, and then each session was designed by them in support of the Celebration of Hope initiative that they were rolling out. And they did it in a few weeks' time. A few weeks. Not 6 months, not 9 months. They had to turn it around quickly. And if they wanted to translate this now in any language, they could do it in a few minutes. And that's really the power of what technology can do if you design with that intention. Next slide. This is an example of an evangelist in the US who's doing 30 days of prophetic evangelism. I haven't seen the content. I've never met the guy. He is definitely not a technologist, he's an evangelist, he just speaks. But getting one of the guys to actually create a 30-day prophetic prayer program, basically where he does these little videos from his phone and he encourages everyone, and then they go through and then they have to pick someone to pray for. Transformative. Transformative. Next slide. And then this is actually the use of gamification and rewards. Now again, not all gamifications and rewards, and gamification is not the same as games. So just because people think games are cool and fun, not all things have to be made into games, but you can gamify the experience based on who your students are and what you're trying to accomplish. So gamification is really about the element of surprise. It's also about kind of creating a sense of competition and accomplishment. So one of the ways that we do that is we have these leaderboards. So every Friday you'll get a leaderboard, which is positive, so it only has the top learners. So that's one way that we encourage people to have healthy competition. We also do other things with elements of surprise that pop up. Just like if I were to say, okay, everyone, in 2 minutes, look under the table. There's a little surprise. A few of you have a little, gift. That would be the element of surprise. So that's gamification as well, to keep engagement. And so you can actually embed that even into the learning experiences. Next. So this is just an example of kind of the scores. So in the group board, you can see who's at 100% and all the different rankings so that you can create competition. So there are very simple ways that once you understand the principles, you can apply in the technologies that you're using in order to drive that behavior. Next. At the end of the day, the whole idea of moving that knowledge beyond just in your head into the application, into a lived experience, these are just very, very simple principles. I know many of you are already doing this in the classroom, and I'm here to kind of deliver some good news that it's possible to do it in a technology platform as well. It's possible, but it starts with your design intention and what you're trying to accomplish. And with that design intention, then the technology should follow and should mimic that human experience as much as possible. But the human experience, which is the desired one, not the old school one. So if you have bad human experiences, don't expect technology to solve that. You got to fix the mindset first. And then once you get that done, that's possible. So I think I'm going to wrap up because I think I'm a little bit over time as well, just with maybe a call out or a challenge, to everyone. Is, I think one of the things that's really, interesting, if you take the secular world, and we're working with like 90% of the institutes of higher learning in Singapore to actually redefine digital learning, whether it's for students, for alumni, micro degrees, certifications, and all of these things. So the whole education space is being disrupted. Whether you're open to it, whether you like it, whether you don't like it. And so what's going to happen is as students come, it's not the only way. So just don't get me wrong, it's not the only way. There are definitely different ways and modalities of learning. But there, I imagine, are going to be millions of people who can never step foot into your seminaries. There are millions of people whose friends of friends will never be able to get access if it's done in the traditional way. So how can we actually then scale that and empower as many people as possible with truth? And so that's kind of my challenge. I guess and my ask, to all of you to consider is how can you use technology to further enhance and scale the amazing work that you're already doing to transform lives around the world. Thank you very much.